I'm going to kick it off just by saying this is 20 minutes where I get to introduce the amazing Vanice, who commissioned this project. And on behalf of Policy Link, I'm going to give a moment for Vanice to introduce herself and her work. I will introduce myself and my work because I don't know a couple people. And then we're going to talk about the project because that's what we're here for. So Vanice, go ahead and say who you are.
Hello, thank you for the warm welcome. Hi, everyone. Vanice Dunn. I am the Vice President of Communications at Policy Link. We call ourselves a Research and Action Institute. Essentially, we are thinking about inside-outside strategy for advancing racial justice for all of our folks, thinking about seeking liberation from all avenues. And I spend most of my time thinking about how storytelling is a critical driver in our movements toward creating the type of world that's actually worthy of us and our families and our communities and our neighbors. And I am also a friend of Mijan and longtime admirer, huge fan, and I'm really, really grateful to be in this conversation. So thank you for inviting me.
My internet may be going in and out because it's Santa Fe. So please just be patient and roll with it. Thank you again, Vanice, for saying yes to joining me today. It gives us an opportunity to talk about the project. No, you don't have to keep your camera off. It is like literally the internet of downtown Santa Fe in my office even, but I might go off camera like here and there if I'm noticing that it drops constantly. Okay, I'm going to tell you who I am. I'm Mijan Celie Tho-Biaz. I'm an oral historian. I am the lead oral historian for this project. I'm the person who conceived it. I'm the person who's curating the oral history and the civic engagement projects related to amplifications and archival purposes. I have well over a decade in this work. I came to it through graduate school and I just kept going, mainly because I was recruited as an executive director of a media arts education organization and I got to be an oral historian in that role. I have, with the exception of one time, is that true? Yes. I have always done oral history projects that are BIPOC centered exclusively. And so this is a continuation of that work. So we're going to tell the origin story, but first I'm going to tell you what it is. It's for this California project, it's 4 sets of oral histories, a minimum of 5 oral histories per set. So that means a minimum of 20 on the theme of liberation with California-based people. And because I make all of my projects intergenerational, I'm paying very close attention to elders, as well as young people and everybody else in between. And then I always think through, who do I want to listen to these oral histories and what do we want them to do? I have never done a traditional project, traditional air quotes. And so when I think about archiving and amplifying, I'm thinking outside of mainstream structures and strategies. And so I think about archiving for a limited period of time because the paint eventually peels, but I think amplify and archive at the same time through murals, community accessible public art murals, through dedicated music projects, through public libraries where your little kid can go and check out the stories as well as elders and everybody else. So that's where my mind goes and wanders when I'm creating projects. However, let's talk about the beginning of this one, how it came to be, because I recognize my career has been non-traditional. And this pairing, I don't think that many oral historians are hired by national policy institutes, to tell you the truth. So it's an unusual, magical, dreamy collaboration between 2 Black women who have known each other for some time and watched each other's work I'm going to speak for myself. I have watched with admiration Vanice's work. So Vanice, say how this started from your end. This is going to be like if we were married, because we have two different stories.
Yes, let's play the newlyweds game. I love this. So this project actually first came to me. It's one stream in a sort of broader project with multiple verticals. And it came with the sort of, grant deliverable that you get. That's, the very wonky language that says something along the lines of a collection of academic, research-based written histories that highlight the historical context for different racial and ethnic histories. So I was like, is this firm or is there any flexibility here? And so I had a chance to really talk with the folks who catalyzed the project and ask, what are we actually trying to do? What's the goal? What's the hope? And it really was around the ultimate goal of building cross-racial and cross-ethnic transformative solidarity within and among Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, and Pacific Islander communities. And one of the anecdotes that someone shared as we were thinking about what we were trying to achieve was the space when you're in people of color organizing space, you're power building, and you're really with your people, and then suddenly you realize some harm is being created because folks don't understand what folks are bringing to the table. And it is that sort of icky feeling of, oh, these are my people. I really want to build solidarity with them. I'm here for it. And it doesn't feel safe. Folks don't know what I'm holding or the nuances of what me or my people are bringing to the table and how it impacts me. And so the goal is for this project to really get at some of that, telling some of those stories. And so I decided to shift from the long form written reports, which we all love to read, to oral histories. Because for me, not only because I've seen Mijan's work in action and seen how powerful it is, and I'm a firm believer in storytelling as the sort of the thing, my number one in all things. But really, I feel like oral histories offer an opportunity to better understand each other from our own perspectives of our history, not just an academic or just a research, which are parts of that, but how we have experienced and lived through that history. And if we're thinking about building empathy and understanding, no better way to do that than from someone's own words about their history. And so once I thought about oral histories, of course, the first person top of mind was the brilliant, amazing goddess divine, Mijan, and was so excited. First and only call was to Mijan to really think about the critical task of how we bring oral histories, not just oral histories, but how we bring them to life. And one thing of many things that I respect so much about your work, Mijan, is that you really honor each history that you collect and you give it a life beyond a recording. And that felt so crucial to this work. And that's why that was the impetus for this.
This is so sweet. I feel super emotional. What needs to be said is that Vanice sent me an email. I was in an artist residency in Oaxaca, which is my good time, my dreamy space. And I thought I was just helping Vanice because I'm generous in general. And I was like, oh, this is because I could have sworn you said, how would you approach this? And I was like, I would do this and I would design it this way and da-da-da-da. And then the next email was literally like, when can we start working on a scope? And you do this year. And this is when the project needs to complete. And I was like, wait, there's no application because the nonprofit industrial complex loves to do that. I was like, there's no reporting. What I really have to highlight, I think I'm looking to see like who's in attendance. Yes, I think this could be helpful for a couple of folks. We in this scope, what I pitched, Vanice approved, and what we are doing over this whole year, we have 3 meetings. And I think that the average nonprofit project, program, initiative really believes deeply in meeting all the time. And I've started to wonder, is it surveillance? Are people paying to be my friend? Like, what is this? Because it doesn't really actually contribute. When I think about the end results and the processes to get there, it doesn't drive that. And so what I want to note is I think A, it's Vanice, B, it's Policy Link, C, it's one Black woman who works with integrity and strong work ethic, working with another Black woman who is known to work with integrity, have a strong work ethic, deliver. It's that synergy where, why would you need to meet? We've already discussed what's going to happen. We have a beginning kickoff meeting, a midpoint meeting, and a final meeting. We've already mapped out the different ways that we want this work to move through the world, who we want it to impact, what ways we want it to impact. So again, why would, if the consensus has been reached at the beginning and the work is transpiring as designed, what else why would you spend your money or your time that way? So I thought it was just like a random email that I was helping, and clearly it wasn't. Clearly it was, will you just do this? So that's how we got here. I believe strongly in Policy Link's mission. I believe so strongly. So thanks to Vanice, being able to meet and briefly work with Angela Glover Blackwell, who's the founder, one of the fiercest, I think, of that generation, one of the fiercest folks who have labored consistently for liberation through policy. And also I believed that, and this is for the oral historians, because I noticed there are a handful who joined, I believed that there was strong likelihood that this could serve as a portfolio piece. I was given the permission and also the welcome and invitation to weave different parts of my practices all together into a 360-degree story project. And so I was like, oh, we might work together again. And in my mind, again, forgetting a little bit about Vanice, I'm like, off into the distance. And I was like, oh, no, knock, knock, knock. Hey, we're doing this story at scale, 1 week event in the middle of your current contract. Could we just give you another contract? Would you do that? So I think that there's some importance about building longevity relationships that are tied to the work in general and the admiration. I want to know though, because I know our time is winding a little bit until we kick it to general Q&A, Vanice, at least from a comms perspective, because when I think about the people who typically hire me, you are the very first comms department. Vanice is the vice president of Policy Link, specifically communications. So I don't understand how this came to be through comms and how more of your peers might be considered in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think one of my biggest responsibilities as a communicator is resisting the temptation to decide on my tactic before I have established my goals. And I think that is a big piece for this project. It was conceived in a way where the deliverables were ironed out, but the goals hadn't been established. And so if you haven't established your goals as a communicator, you are not going to, other than by luck, and happen upon the right tactics. You have to force yourself to think about, what am I trying to achieve? Who do I need to engage to achieve that? What do those folks care about? How do they move? What information do they consume? And then move yourself into really thinking about tactics. And so that is where oral history really landed here, is giving myself and working in an organization that gives me the space and grace to say, hey, let's push that deliverable out so we can take some time to do some of the groundwork that hasn't been done yet, and ask ourselves, what are we trying to achieve? And to the points I made earlier around folks being able to show up in a room and feel like the people in that room know a little something about them and their communities and the people that they hold near and dear to them. Knowing that, it became very clear to me that oral history was the pathway to meeting that goal. And I believe so strongly in the power of storytelling and how we make meaning of ourselves and the world around us. And of course, like I'm going to probably say in response to every question, an opportunity to work with Mijan is just a glorious opportunity. And having someone who I knew would care for the work as much as I cared for the work felt really critical. And I think it's, even as we're thinking about goals and audience and strategies and tactics, that is a critical part, is being able to be surrounded by a team of folks who feel as passionately about the importance of this work in the world and about the folks who are participating. I think when we're thinking about storytelling, non-extractive storytelling is incredibly critical to me. And so I have to be very thoughtful around the consultants and partners that I engage with, because if I'm not there to sort of gatekeep and really think about how are they treating those folks and their words, and are they giving them the love and respect and the gratitude that they deserve for the gift of their story. And I don't have to have that worry with Mijan. So that was, I will say, a little point on top for moving toward oral histories, but it was the right tactic, I swear. I did all of the right steps, but that was just a little bonus point on top of it.
I gotta piggyback on that, because I think for oral historians who, like, one thing that I noticed in this project where I was like, oh, this is A, needed, and B, makes a whole bunch of sense to the outcomes. I have curated the list of narrators, and it hasn't been a top-down policy link saying you have to interview this person, this person, this person. Our agreement literally in the contract, and what we've followed through with, is I say, here's next who I have some common relationships moving through a chain of trust. That's how I was taught as an oral historian, to build out the ecosystem of narrators. And here's what I'm thinking. This is the composition within each of these oral history sets. What do you think? So it has been collaborative. However, it's one of those rare times. And so I realized in retrospect, I will actually never make an agreement like this again. I didn't know, I was unconscious. It's the trust that made me say, like, we're going to do it this way. But if it was anybody else who was new to me, or perhaps anybody else, it would be a bad move, because I'd be putting my reputation on the line with 20 people plus every collaborator for the public art projects and the civic engagement projects. That's too steep. That's just too steep. So I think one thing we have highlighted and underlined several times in this conversation just now, trust and care, trust and care. Sarah has written, thanks for the conversation. For Vanice, what are some strategies you use to convince folks within a policy organization? But I think this can be expanded at large to move beyond white papers and reports and towards a more community-centered, story-based approach. I love this question for you, Vanice. Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. This is, I think, one of the million-dollar questions. I think one is, one way that I do it is, as I mentioned earlier, really pushing folks to be clear on what they're trying to achieve. What is your actual goal? What do you want to happen? And then thinking about, who do you need to engage to do that? What do those folks care about? How do they consume information? Where are they engaging? And then I think right now, 2.5 years into a global pandemic, one of the things I've been pushing our organization to think about is, aren't you tired? How many white papers do you read every week? Even if you did 2.5 years ago today, and it's really pushing folks to say, oh, okay, I actually move differently. I'm exhausted. I consume information differently, and really being able to center our audiences and not just what we have always done. And I think the other thing I'll say is that even if you're able to get that buy-in and push folks to really understand, and they have that light bulb moment of, oh, I would actually rather watch this video or listen to this audio or see some beautiful graphics, they'll forget. And then you'll have to do the whole process over again of reminding, because we've just been socialized for so long to believe that we should only value the longest form written word that feels the most academic and therefore worthy. And to dismantle that socialization takes a lot of work and a lot of reminders, but it's really, really worthwhile.
Thank you, Vanice. Okay, we are 2 minutes from time. So instead of opening it to a last remaining question, I'm just going to drive home some points. Trust, mutual trust, care for everybody, including the commissioning person, as well as the practitioner and creative collaborators. Reparations-based rates. I love how you said that, how you state that. I thank Vanice endlessly all the time, even if it's not spoken, but I try to as much as possible, for being a champion of my work, for always saying yes to me, and then me getting a chance finally this year to say yes to Vanice, which really was just yes to me, which was also just yes to doing a massive love letter for California BIPOC people. A dream come true to do this portfolio, project. I want to say this one last thing that I realized we didn't highlight. Because this is part of Com's department, one of the very first things that I thought about was what would be helpful and useful to you all? What would be in service to your mission and goals within the Com's department? And for the first time, I was like, wait, how should this be documented? So that you have artifact, and that was like a first where you said, could you produce an artifact, a one-page artifact where we understand what you did for anybody else up and down the state of California and related to PolicyLink, they'd be able to, to touch this artifact and say, okay, we want to do a community-based liberation thematic oral history project. We at least have some steps to go off of. And then I was able to play with that a bit and say, oh, where in the public square, not academic journal articles, but where in the public square should we do a write-up? And you were like, I know, let's co-author a social impact essay for XYZ and we'll pitch it. And so all of that got detailed in the contract. It wasn't like oh, Mijan will do this extra work for free somehow. I think I need to be transparent and also praise Vanice, because the beyond average collaboration, that is the expectation, that the practitioner will do everything for free or low cost. And Vanice, you were like, no, absolutely not, as you're shaking your head right now. So thank you endlessly. We will keep you up to date, how the project progresses. The next steps are I'm doing the mural site visits. We have the very first amplification that said yes. The Asian Pacific Islander oral histories will be amplified through a massive mural that will be seen from everybody who's driving on Highway 880 in Chinatown in Oakland. So that's yay, number one. And then I'm working to make sure that they are accessible. The oral history is accessible through the public library systems throughout the state. I'm collecting the actual oral histories right now, so I'm super busy. So please, if you have a mixtape or anything else, like now's not the time to share. I will take all of the love and support. I'm back in California for 3 weeks to make all this happen. And then I'll be back home in Santa Fe for the middle of October. That means that the next Open Studio conversation will be in November, when I'm putting a bow on this project. And that one is already a yes. It's all on artist residencies, because in 2023, I'm spending half of the year in artist residencies. Artist residency was where I conceived this project and designed it. It's where I answered the call or the email from Vanice. Artist residencies are so vitally important, I believe, for artists and creatives and cultural workers in general, scholars, writers, transcribers, translators. They're also, though, I think, the place where we can be playful, we can dream, especially for liberation-based projects. That's important. It's fuel for our practice. So I'm excited to see who I become at the end of 2023 at the last artist residency stop. I'm going to end there. I'm saying thank you to everybody who showed up today. I hope that this was generative for you all. We'll see you in November. Thank you again, Vanice.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone.